Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Ask AJ. I'm AJ Hanna from Sykes. I recently got an email from someone who is in part of an RPA program at an organization and it was struggling with setting appropriate expectations for what could and could not be the result of an automation effort. And so her question was, what things could we do? What things should we be doing to try to make sure expectations are realistic on what might happen once we've automated something? In her example, people are coming thinking that they can automate something at 90% and perhaps only 60% of it is automated. And there are lots of reasons why that might happen. And my advice to her and to others is that it really starts with education of the business owner or the process owner. And some of that education may extend to how the process actually works. And in many cases, you find out a lot about what is or isn't true about the way a process is done by sitting and observing people and documenting what's really happening as opposed to the impression of what might be happening. You also need to make sure that everybody has a common understanding of what the automation technology you're using does and doesn't do. So if somebody thinks that they can automate 90%, but that 90% requires translation of unstructured data, for example, that's not something that RPA in and of itself is going to do. So making sure that everybody has a clear understanding for this technology that we're using and that we're putting in place, this is what it's capable of doing. It's also important to emphasize that the more variation that exists within a process and the way it's done, specifically if the same process is done in multiple locations in an organization, that lack of consistency in the way that that process is done mitigates your ability to get the full impact from automation. The lack of standardization will mean that you have to have more variance, have to invest more time and money, and possibly run the risk, if those processes aren't well documented, of missing facets that are shaving savings potential from the work that you're doing. Your documentation is critical. And so assuring that that documentation includes fair assumptions, fair observance of the way things are done, and really a common understanding by both the process owner as well as the developer what it is we're trying to get to, and really what metrics we're using in order to determine effectiveness. In some cases, people may look at a process and they think, I have 5 people doing that process. They're talking about headcount. What in actuality, once you document it, once you start looking at the process and the way it's worked and the way it's done, you may find that what in reality, you have the equivalent of maybe 1 FTE doing it. It's just spread out over many. And so they're oftentimes without proper guidance on the way to view the return on investment that you might get from an automation. The possibility that people are saying, well, there are 5 people doing it, and without going to much further depth, thinking that they can eliminate 5 people. And that's not what you can do if only a portion of the work being done by each of those 5 is that particular task. So your return potential is much smaller. So it's setting those expectations, laying those baselines, and assuring that we all have a common understanding of what the goal is that we're trying to get to, and what the current environment really is or is not, will help you manage those expectations much more effectively about the impact that an automation project can have on a particular process. If you have questions, feel free to drop me a line at askaj@sykes.com, or you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter and drop a note there at Ask AJ Hanna, no H on the end, and I'll talk to you again soon.